Before we begin, thank you very much to I Love Titanium, Megatron, and Retrax for joining the Patreon campaign. See, I mentioned that there was a shout out recently where I wasn't comfortable saying something that they wanted me to say, and someone tested that by going for my personal dislikes. Unfortunately, it's not that simple. I will say goofy things like that for a laugh, but I will not say certain things. Now, since we're doing today's video, this time I can actually just go ahead and let you know it was because they wanted me to say that the two on screen right now were funny. I don't find them funny. I find them offensive and crude. So, no, I wasn't comfortable having say that, especially given the controversy around the characters. I wasn't comfortable giving that sentence. So, that said, they did pitch in at the highest tier, and they had a request. And the request was to fix them. So, you know what? Okay, since I didn't shout you out, I will bump you to the front of the line. We'll go ahead and examine these two and exactly how I would do Skids and Mudflap from Revenge of the Fallen in a way that, maybe won't get everyone involved in trouble. So, when it comes down to these two, really, if we want to fix them, yeah, that's it. That's it. That's really all I can say. That's it. Video's over. Thank you everyone for watching. I'll see you next time. Now, it really shouldn't be that simple, but it really does boil down to that, If they had done designs for the heads that didn't draw from caricature stereotypes, I would probably not really mind these two as far as a visual design goes. If their personality hadn't been based on certain stereotypes, I really wouldn't mind these two. It really just comes down to the idea that Michael Bay has a very sophomoric, juvenile sense of humor, and really offensive stuff makes him laugh. So that kind of goes into how Skids and Mudflap exists. It's Michael Bay's idea of two comic relief characters. And we know, right, from Romeo and Juliet Law to Deep Wang, the kind of frat boy humor Michael Bay has, okay? So when he makes an entire character revolving around that and then doubles it up, that's what you get. That's what happens, and we know the public outcry and the fandom outcry over the whole thing as well. So it really just does come down to that, right? Don't base them on racist stereotypes. That's really as simple as it is. However, there are other things to go through, because this is a total reimagining. So we're just covering bases of what they are. So we have to go through everything about, the specifics. Okay, so what don't I like? Okay, well, the head designs we don't like because, we know. We've been over it. I'm not a huge, again, I'm going to put aside my usual disdain for, movie-esque designs, because, I don't like the gray skeleton covered in random shrapnel. I don't like that look. They look just very broken up. I like solid-looking characters. We've been through, personality character-wise. So, is there something about the twins that actually works for me? And believe it or not, there are a few things. So, for starters, I actually do like how contrasting they are. From the orange and the bright green, they make a good, contrast to each other. And I like the little details. I like the fact that each one of them has this really large arm to them, where Skids has his on the right side, Mudflap has his on the left. I like that they're both based on kind of mini vehicles, what look like shrunken down SUVs. It kind of fits, and it gives them that kind of roundish aesthetic that kind of fits in with a lot of how younger Transformers are typically depicted. So if you're going for the idea that, well, they're just young and they don't know any better, well, number one, yes, in character design, you have actually shown that. But also, number two, that's an easy cop-out to make because it doesn't change how the writers directed them. So yeah, that's the long and short of what I like. I don't mind the vehicle modes. Like, keep the vehicle modes, right? It kind of makes sense. It kind of works for them. And you know what? We'll keep the large arm thing. So let's go back. Let's go back in time a little bit, and we'll examine the last time this was kind of a prominent design feature, and we'll see. In my head, we're somewhere along the lines of X-Brawn, right? So this is the original guy who had like the big arm. You know, he was to Transformers what Fisto is to He-Man. Stop chuckling at that name. It's been over 40 years. Get over it. I would take a little bit more. I would take a little bit more from this design. Not only because I happen to like the design, but also because I think this really just fits into Hasbro's wheelhouse. If you could design a character like this that they could later on do homages, where Skids ends up as like the Silver X-Brawn and Mudflap ends up in like the rally colors, the super version. They love to get those homages out. And they do a lot better than Tuner Mudflap, right? So anytime you can tell Hasbro, hey, you can get a lot of repaints out of this, they're going to go, gimme, gimme. In fact, I would go so far as to push the idea of them being twins to the point where I would actually make the toys transform the same. I would make them retools of each other, where the only difference I would have in the transformation is which arm ends up being the large one. And if you're using the front of the vehicle in order to make that big old punchy fist, then yeah, you could switch the engineering up for that to connect to the left arm or the right arm, and then the smaller arm would tuck into whatever groove or slot is in the vehicle mode is left over for it, regardless of what side it's on. You could do that. Now, I wouldn't straight up copy X-Brawn's design. Like I would to the point of like, you could get away with an homage of it down the road. However, I want to push that round vehicle thought. And I want to kind of recast Skids and Mudflap. The one thing about the personalities that I kind of agree with is the fact that they are younger Autobots. You can say that they are caricatures because they don't know any better. Someone in the movie should have told them this should have been lampshaded. Like, that's not cool. Knock it off. I digress. I want to work with that idea of they're young. Okay? So we're going to incorporate a little bit more of this into their design as well, where the top of the vehicle becoming the chest, not only because I want them to kind of invoke Bumblebee a little bit in their designs, but also I think it makes them stand out because there's so many movie Transformers that just use the front of the car as the chest. Almost all of the original Autobots do. Jazz does, Ratchet does, Ironhide does, Bumblebee does, Optimus to an extent. We get a little bit of switch up. We get a little bit of switch up. Jolt doesn't, and Sideswipe uses the rear, but it still kind of aesthetically comes out the same way. But you get my drift. Like, it gives you a little bit of a different aesthetic to work with. It makes them stand out. It makes them stand out from the rest of the bots. So we clean these two up. We give these two an extreme makeover. We keep the large arm. We keep the colors. But we make them a little bit more similar in each other to design, a little bit closer to twins. Different head sculpts? Yes. Different little details here and there? Yes. Yes, but most of that should come from the different vehicle modes they have. So they feel as similar as possible because these two are going to have to work off each other a lot. I would keep their personalities a little bit more distinct. I would have one smarter than the other. I would have one more outgoing than the other. I would try to balance them out so that instead of just being one character, which, let's be honest, Skids and Mudflap are a singular character in Revenge of the Fallen. I don't think there's a way of disputing that. They're the same guy, just in two bodies. But I want to give them just a little bit more of a difference, just to separate them out a little bit personality-wise. But other than that, I just kind of want them to stand in as the young Autobot who's trying to prove themselves, who is trying to make a name for themselves. They're the youngest ones who answered Optimus Prime's call at the end of the movie in 2007. So they have a lot to prove, and they're eager to prove it to the great leader of the Autobots. For the role in Revenge of the Fallen, I would actually have them right here. I mean, not being bludgeoned by Bumblebee, but I would have them under his tutelage. So, a thing in Revenge of the Fallen is I really, really do not like how Bumblebee is being treated. He spends most of his time in Sam's garage, apparently, like a dog in their doghouse. It's weird. And when Bumblebee comes out to rescue him, he shoos him back into the garage. Bumblebee should have been treated way better in this movie. He gets hero moments at the end, but beyond that, he just kind of drifts through this movie a little bit. So we're going to give him something to do. Optimus puts him in charge of Skids and Mudflap. It's his job to whip them into shape. And it's frustrating. These are not going to be easy students. To their, they're going to, their statements are going to be something to the effect of, how are we supposed to learn from someone who can't even talk right? Because unfortunately, in this scenario, it can't change the beep booping that Bumblebee does, even though it's supposedly got repaired at the end of the first movie. We have to keep that gimmick, apparently. Hate that gimmick, but we have to keep the gimmick. We're focusing on Skids and Mudflap, and they are basically just kind of like mockingly do this. Like, they are the overconfident youth, right? They think way too highly of themselves. So, they got this. What do they need Bumblebee's tutelage for? What's he ever done? So, we continue with that story. We continue with that personality until we get to the scene where Sam is captured by the Decepticons and the Autobots roll to the rescue. Now, in the original movie, Optimus and Bumblebee are the ones who show up. But remember, it's Skids and Mudflap as the students of Bumblebee, so they're going to arrive as well. The big thing here to remember is, yeah, it's 2 more bodies on the battlefield, so technically, the Autobots are not outnumbered in my version of this scene. However, it is 3 big hitter Decepticons. For all intents and purposes, Grindor is standing in for Blackout, so I'm going to assume he's as powerful as Blackout, meaning it's 3 very powerful Decepticons up against Optimus, Bumblebee, and 2 rookies who are in way over their head, to the point where Grindor is an enormous threat to them. Grindor didn't get much room, didn't get to do much in that fight scene. I would really like him to just, like, make it a goal to pursue after the twins. Not because of personal bias and, maybe wanting to see them get sliced with a helicopter blade. But no. Just because I want the biggest Decepticon on the battlefield to be the one that's kind of overbearing on them and making them realize, oh, we have no idea what we're doing. This is not what I thought I was signing up for. Optimus is going to temporarily deal with Starscream and then notice that Skids and Mudflap are in danger from Grindor. So what does he do? He does the Optimus Prime thing. He jumps to the rescue. This is how Grindor gets his head ripped in half. And in this version, it actually kind of explains why he went to such a violent method. Because it dealt with him as quickly as possible to save Skids and Mudflap. Which makes for a real nice distraction for Megatron to just run a blade through his gut and blast out the other side. Optimus is dead. It's kind of Skids and Mudflap's fault. Yes, I'm doing the 86 Hot Rod story. I'm running it back. But remember, in that story, no one really, I'm not going to hold anyone accountable in this one either. According, as far as the other Autobots are concerned, Optimus was just saving their lives. It's what Optimus Prime does. He saves lives. So no one's going to hold anything against them for this. They're going to hold it against themselves. A lot more so than Rodimus did. So Hot Rod, it was in the course of the movie, after Optimus Prime first fell, he didn't really show himself as feeling all too shaken up over the fact that he might have contributed to his leader's death. That came later. That came in season 3. We're going to see the effects of it now because Skids and Mudflap only have, a 2-hour movie to grow and develop as characters. So this is going to be the thing. This is going to be the reason why they want to come to Egypt. Even though they're considered young and inexperienced, and this might not be an appropriate mission for them, they want to be the ones. They want to come with, because they owe it to Optimus to help out, however it, whatever it takes. And Optimus saved their lives for a reason. So let's use the lives he gave us to save more. It's a kind of this is their little turning point. This is when they start getting serious. And this is when they start following along with Bumblebee a lot more. So we get to Egypt. Let's get to the big battle scene. We'll actually kind of talk about this. I really don't like how the battle scene was done. So after not really doing a whole lot for the movie, Bumblebee gets to take on Rampage and Ravage. And it really just exists so Bumblebee can have some hero moment of filleting a couple of Decepticons. It's off to the side, doesn't really seem to contribute that much to the battle, and the characters are basically nothing. We got a little bit of Ravage before this, but Rampage just kind of pogo sticks in out of nowhere and gets, sliced up by Bumblebee. So, no, that's just kind of lame. Just kind of boring, I want this to mean a little bit more. So, and I want the battle to be a little bit spread out. Because okay, so Jolt and Ratchet are going to have a moment at the end where they're repairing Optimus with Jetfire's parts. So instead of offing RC off screen, how about we actually let her have a fight scene with Ravage? That can be high pace and kind of kinetic. It's one very nimble opponent against three small, rolling around type enemies. That would be a cool fight scene. Let Ironhide take on Rampage. Now you have the two heavies, but just going blow to blow. Now you've got a cooler fight scene. So what is Bumblebee doing? They're handling this guy. Skids and Mudflap's hero moment in the movie is actually fighting and doing some damage to Devastator without getting killed. But we can do better with Bumblebee now, taking them under his wing and these two actually following along. They can actually have a coordinated attack that shuts off some of Devastator's most threatening things, like the big vacuum grinder that makes up most of his design. Things like that. So they're working to disable. In this edition of this story, I'm going to let Simmons and Bumblebee stay in contact because, let's be honest, there's a lot of Deus Ex when it comes to how to beat Devastator. Devastator just happens to be in just the right position for a naval ship off the bow off the coast of Africa to actually see him standing on top of the pyramid. They just happen to have an experimental railgun on hand. There's a lot of Deus Ex. There's a lot of convenient contrivance to the finale of Revenge of the Fallen. A reminder, this movie was made the script of this movie was made in about 2 weeks because the writer's strike was coming up, which is probably why Skids and Mudflap exists, because Michael Bay's usual filters didn't get applied to this movie. So, in this version, Simmons informs Bumblebee that they need to get Devastator high up and get him to stay still long enough to actually take this shot. So we'll take a little bit of convenience out of it, and we'll leave it to Skids, Mudflap, and Bumblebee to actually lure Devastator up the mountain. Now, we don't need him to actually unveil the Sun Harvester. It could be something the Fallen himself does. Just activate it, the top of the pyramid explodes, boom, Sun Harvester. But to actually get Devastator up on top of this pyramid, then yeah, it's got to be Bumblebee, Skids, and Mudflap that take the initiative. You got to give a reason why they can't destroy the Harvester themselves. Force field, low on ammo, etc. I could actually see, yeah, they're just low on ammo at this point, so they don't have the equipment to blow it up. But they can get Devastator up high. They can get Devastator to actually start climbing this pyramid, and then they've got just enough left to blast some blocks out from underneath him to trap his legs inside the pyramid, get him nice and stuck long enough for a railgun to take a shot and finish him off. That's my way of handling the finale. Bumblebee still gets a hero moment. Skids and Mudflap still get to be wrapped up with Devastator. They went from cowering at an enemy that was, roughly twice their size, to taking on a gigantic enemy and actually coming through, relatively okay with a new respect for their teacher. So, hopefully that ends with a happier story for them besides, just, we tussled with a giant, got covered in sand, and then just kind of waited for the fight to be over. And hopefully a better response to these two from the audience. So, that's how I'm doing Skids and Mudflap. Very problematic characters. I think they are, as intended, entirely right to be basically banned, basically like completely out of existence as far as the current Transformers franchise goes. I think that's unfortunately deserved. Because, look, in the span of 20 minutes, I told you how these two could have been far better, more interesting, and just characters that we could have, kept homaging, kept coming back, kept reinventing, but we didn't, because this happened. But that's how I would do it. Let me know what you thought in the comments below, and as always, I will see you next time.